Welcome to Subramani. Please hit the bell icon. Please subscribe if you have not already subscribed. I just wanted to talk about the importance of reading, or the over importance people give to reading. Right. So two types of learning happens. One, what we call active learning. When you go to a school, college, you do CA, you do law, something like that. When you have active learning, and second is when you have passive learning, which you learn from experiences in the world. The market teaches you, friends teach you, all that happens, and you are able to learn from that. When I think it helps a lot in making videos, in talking to a lot of audience. I talk to lawyers, I talk to chartered accountants, I talk to doctors, I address them, then I hear from them, then I talk to MFDs, I talk to IFAs, RIAs, all of them, interact with mutual fund companies, and there's a lot of learning happening. So there are three types of learning happening. One is the active learning. Active learning I call going to school, college, doing CA. There are deadlines, so that's a very, very powerful way of learning. You're forced to learn. It's something like you don't know anything about cricket, so you have to write an exam, then you will go and learn everything. What is the height of the stumps, what is the gap between two wickets, what is the size of the ball, what is the weight of the ball, what kind of bat weight can be. But you have to learn all the theory, and you have to enjoy it. Or you watch and learn, but then when you watch and learn, you don't know the weight of the ball, you don't know the weight of the bat, you don't know the gap between two wickets, right? How many yards have to be run. But when you do the theory, you will learn all the theory also. Similarly, whether it is investing or anything, the advantage of active learning is there is a deadline. So you don't just buy the books and say, as and when I get time, I'll read it. I think the worst investment I've made is a bookshelf, because then you tend to put the book on the shelf and then you don't read it. Okay, sorry, that was a digression. So active learning is when you have exams and you have deadlines, and you are trying to say, okay, I want to learn everything there is about this exam so that I just crack the exam, right? You want to do well. So you will sit, learn, make notes, read, mug, whatever you want to do, and learn the subject. And the other way of learning, of course, is passive learning. You read books, you watch YouTube videos, you do all that, and you learn. There is some learning happening, and the best way to capture that learning is by maintaining a diary, maintaining a blog, writing, making videos, because you capture whatever you learned. If you learned something today, I can capture that in my video and remember it, and I can also share it with you. So that's another way of learning. But I also think when you read a book, that's also learning. But when you are reading a book, you don't have a specific target, unlike when you were writing an exam. When you write an exam and you know that your exam is in the month of May, and you start sometime in January, you know which book to read, how much to read, what to prepare, and all that. When in real life, when you read, you're just reading. You don't have to prepare for some exam. But my view on reading is, you should read across genres, you learn across subjects. You want to learn about old age, you want to learn about how children think, you want about psychology, about how countries thought, so which means you're learning about philosophy. You need to learn and read across, and realize I can talk about cooking and investing. I can talk about going to watch a tiger in India or a lion in Africa, and connect it to investing. I can do all that. Your mind constantly keeps connecting. So when you maintain a diary, or when you maintain a blog, you capture all that. So it's very important that when you read a book, there's no point in reading a book on, say, investments just like that. You're not reading a novel, you're not reading a John Grisham and saying, oh, I learned so much about the American judiciary or the American legal system. That's fine, you don't have to write an exam in that, so you learn some things. But when you're doing an investment book, when you're reading, I think you should maintain a notebook and write down what you learned from that book in 2-3 pages. You should be able to summarize and say, this is what I learned, this is what I found interesting. In fact, I found a new way of reading. I'm reading one book now called Outlive. I've read it in the past, and I just pick up some chapters to read. It's a very, very technical book on health, right? It's on health. Outlive is about health, but it's very technical. So some of the technical portions I just give up. Some of the more understandable, more interesting portions I read. It's not that I make notes, but somewhere in my head I know down what all I have read, and I enjoy that process. So there are times when I read a book, and there are some chapters which are too boring, too lousy, and I think I'm not going to learn, I just throw it away. I just don't read beyond that. If I've read 5 chapters and there are 12 chapters, so be it. I don't read the other 7. If I think it's irrelevant, I'm not learning, I'm not enjoying, then I don't read it. So that's one way of learning, of reading, saying I bought a book, it's very good, I read 30 pages, it's 270. I did not read the other 240 because in this 30 pages I found what I wanted. It was very useful, and I thought I was buying the book for that, and I found it a very good book, very well recommended. And since I finished reading, I'll give it away. I'll give away the book because I don't want my bookshelf to be more crowded. I've already kept books like this, and so there's no place for more books unless I get rid of the books which I've finished reading, which I won't read again. I mean, something on financial management and all that is not banking. I'm not going to read again for the rest of my life. Nobody needs it. So if I start giving away those books, then I'll have more space for keeping books. Right now it's crowded. So get the books, buy the books, go to the library, borrow it, whatever you want to do. Read it, make notes. I mean, books, ROI on books is just magnificent. I read a book, only 3 questions to ask, and I was reading it in, I think, 2007, September, October, whatever. The book had just been released, so I was reading this book. And I came home and just sold off some of the shares, and then 2008 happened. I think the cost of that book was 400 rupees, and the profit that I made because of that book was 4 lakhs. I think that covered a big portion of all my book costs ever in life. So ROI on reading is very high, but ROI on reading has to be made higher or made high by making notes and seeing how much of that you are implementing. So it's very important that you learn, and you are forced to learn when in an academic situation where writing an exam, you're doing CA, you're doing engineering, you're doing MBA, you got a deadline, you got to write an exam, so you will read well, you will make notes, you will learn. After that, there is passive learning, which comes from experience, by talking to people, by chatting, by watching YouTube videos, by reading, all that, and that you start summarizing in terms of you too big, then you can write your autobiography, but writing your diary always makes sense. So write your diary. See, I've done assignments, and on those assignments I've maintained a diary and see how much I've learned. I threw away some of those things, saying, and this is enough, because I'm never going to do a turnaround assignment, etc. again ever in my life. But it was interesting to read. It was interesting to read how the management was behaving, how the staff was behaving, how the clients were behaving. I've written down a lot. All that helps in learning. So similarly, if you think the market is going to do something, then write down your feelings in your diary. Write down what you read in the book. Write down, make notes. Try to make a summary of what you have read, and or do all those things. So to me, I'm making a small distinction between reading and learning. Learning is terribly underestimated, or reading is terribly overrated. Everybody says, oh, you should read books, etc. I don't think you should just read books. What is the point in reading books if you don't even know what you're going to learn from it? So first you should know why you're reading the book. So you have it in your mind saying, I want to learn about this, therefore I'm reading that book. And if you achieve that in the first 30 pages out of 300 pages or out of 400 pages, that's fine. After that, whether you're reading it or not reading it doesn't matter. So make notes out of those 30-40 pages and just keep it in one book, maybe your diary, where you write down about all those things, a big diary. So just write down, keep it, write it well, buy a nice book, buy a nice pen, write it well, so that you feel like reading it again. Don't scribble, because after you scribble, you will spend too much time figuring out what you have written. That's a waste of time. So write well, write reasonably clean. It's good to keep your eye-hand coordination, because we've forgotten the art of writing. We just type. So maybe you type, that's also fine, but make notes, learn, revisit, see how you apply, see whether you learnt it well and whether you applied it well. All that is necessary in your learning process. Reading is good, but reading is a very small part of that. It is maybe 10%, because today you could be learning from YouTube videos. Right now you're watching a YouTube video, so you are perhaps learning from that. So see the process of learning, what you have in place, and then just go and implement it. Thank you.